Hello everyone, it's Infinity Break, coming at you today with another theory video. Now, before I get into this video today, I should probably warn you about a couple things. First off, this is a multi-parter. It's a two-part in a multi-parter theory that's been going on for about 2-3 weeks now. It's a theory about how the Bethesda universe might be connected and looking at how each universe might be possibly connected in different ways. This is by no means a canon theory, it is just supposed to be fun speculation, so please do not take it seriously. There is no saying that this will actually ever become canon. In fact, I kind of believe that it will never become canon, but at the same time, if someone were to connect each universe or put nods to them in video games in the future, this is how they could be doing it. So expect this theory to be more speculation and fun than actual theorizing and, real canonization. So please do not take it seriously. I have had enough people get upset about it, and I had to remind them that this is not actually going to be real, that this is just supposed to be fun. So thank you, please understand that, and then please enjoy the video. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually a part 2 to a multi-part episode by Jonathan Szuhai called the Bethesda Shared Universe Theory. This theory today is going to be going over how the Cthulhu mythos, or should I say, the Cthulhu mythos depicted in Dark Corners of the Earth, published by Bethesda Softworks, is going to be connected to all other Bethesda properties. Now this does not mean it is connected to every single Bethesda property, but I am looking at the ones that have a possible connection to it. Now, if you guys don't know, I'm a huge fan of the Cthulhu mythos. I've loved H.P. Lovecraft since I was in middle school. I think his writings are really nice. Even though I know in today's day and age the guy is covered with a lot of controversy, considering back in the 1920s when he first was writing stuff, it was a different time period and a lot of racial stuff was going on, and he kind of wasn't on the right side of that, especially in today's day and light. So I'm not going to be covering that, but instead I will be covering the writings, and more specifically the game that is depicted from his writings, Dark Corners of the Earth. It is a wonderful game that came out back in 2004, 2005. It was a game surrounding the story of the Shadow over Innsmouth, with other stories such as the Shadow Out of Time kind of mixed in to add a little bit more to the narrative. Now, I don't need to say it again, but I will. This theory is by Jonathan Szuhai, and he sent me a wonderful little email filled with all the information I'm going to be reading off of you today. I will be reading the email word for word, and I will be putting parts of it up on screen, as well as using clips from a wonderful person, a wonderful YouTuber by the name of MrBlockzGaming, who has provided me with a full playthrough of the Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth game. He also does a lot of other games, full complete playthroughs for you to watch. They are wonderful, they're awesome. I really appreciate him just letting me use this. His link will be down in the description. Go check his channel out. I really do appreciate the help he's given me today. So now let's read from Jonathan's email. He says, in Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth, and for that matter, The Shadow over Innsmouth, the story which DCOTE is based on, it is never explained where the Deep Ones came from, whether it was Earth or another world entirely. See, in the Cthulhu mythos, they never really explain where the Deep Ones do come from. They are assumed to be this sort of creature that just kind of is there before. Half of the beauty of the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft is the unknown. That's what adds horror to the cosmic horror he writes. And like I said, I know this stuff because I've read this stuff for years. So I love the fact that they never explain it, but this does leave an opening in this little spin-off, Dark Corners of the Earth at least. Not H.P. Lovecraft's universe. We're only talking about the Dark Corners of the Earth and that specific story. We're not connecting anything else. Though the rules from that universe technically do apply because they are based off of that. So, yes, they never do explain it, but it does leave an opening that we can add an explanation to with this theory. Jonathan continues. In the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, the town of Hactor worships creatures that are also called Deep Ones. If you don't know what Hactor is a huge reference to the Shadow over Innsmouth. I loved it as a kid because, like I said, I played this game back when I was in middle school, and I was reading H.P. Lovecraft. I made the connection right away, but apparently no one else did because I couldn't find any other notes about it being connected to that. Either way, he continues, which the citizens discovered in the mining tunnels underneath the settlement. In Hactor, there is a Bible written by the chief of the Deep Ones. It is written in Daedric runes and in fact uses the same language and most of the same text as the book Ganast Kavada Kavakis, written by the slowed necromancer Ganasta. He is actually, if I'm not mistaken, in the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard. I think you have to beat him in order to progress the story. And if you didn't know, the Elder Scrolls Adventure Redguard is actually a really cool narrative. I liked its story a lot. I think it was its controls that made it a very bad game at the time. He continues, I don't think the Deep Ones of Hactor were Slodes themselves, or they probably would have been recognized by someone in Hactor, if only from folktales. but this could imply that the Deep Ones are related to the slowed race, maybe even originating from the same region of Nirn, the Coral Kingdoms of Thrash. Dark Corners of the Earth establishes that the Deep Ones have access to portal technology as demonstrated by the portals they have between Innsmouth and the underwater city of, and I'm going to probably butcher this, I'm sorry, Yenanal below the Devil's Reef. However, it is heavily implied that the portal technology might have come from the Great Race of Yith, which is another alien race in the Cthulhu mythos that is featured in Dark Corners of the Earth, but there is still another option. So Jonathan continues, and in this part he actually gets really creative and starts connecting some really deep lore stuff, which I actually kind of like. This kind of does make sense if you kind of think about it from this perspective. So he continues, in the Coral Kingdoms of Thrash, there is a structure called the Pillar of Thrash, where the Slowed make sacrifices by sending their victims hurtling down from the top. It is believed to be a portal to Oblivion, since some people that fall from it either perish or vanish without a trace. But nobody was willing to try and find out where it really went, since there was still a chance that the person that jumped would simply fall to their death. Perhaps it doesn't actually lead to Oblivion, but to the Outer Realms, specifically Earth's dimension. Even if it did lead to the Plane of Oblivion, there could still be a portal there that takes them to Earth, just like with Yagam, he could have gone in any other different direction, and Oblivion could lead you to the Outer Realms just as much as Nirn could lead you to the Outer Realms, or any other plane of existence. Either way, a lot of this is speculation and crazy theorizing, so take it with a grain of salt, if you will. And then Jonathan continues by basically saying that even if they didn't have portal technology or they couldn't figure out a way to Nirn, this is still a likely candidate of how they could have arrived on Earth or found a way to Earth on accident. Jonathan continues, since the Deep Ones have been on Earth since before the first human walked, this could mean that during the Dawn Era, which is the only possible time period where all of this could have taken place, a rogue faction among the Deep Ones ventured through the portal to the Outer Realms, cut off all contact with their Nirn brethren, and went from worshipping the Daedra to worshipping Cthulhu, then Father Dagon and Mother Hydra, who are believed to be the two oldest and largest Deep Ones living on Earth. Now, like I said, the stuff might sound a little crazy. Take it with a grain of salt. I kind of like the idea that he goes a little bit out here with the speculation, and I feel like this kind of does make sense if you have, more of a, I suppose you could say, open mind to this kind of stuff. I don't expect any of this to be canon, but he's trying to make connections where connections can be made, and it does make sense if you think about the lore and everything else, considering the narrative of each story. Now, this next part might make a little bit of people upset, especially if they were H.P. Lovecraft purists, so I'm also kind of like, maybe. But remember, this is only applying to the Dark Corners of the Earth continuity. This is not applying to every single other story from H.P. Lovecraft, only the version of the story that we see in that video game. Only there, okay? So please don't get upset. He continues by saying, since the Deep Ones were once Daedric worshippers, it is likely that Father Dagon might have been named after the Daedric Prince of Destruction's Mehrunes Dagon. Of course, this is simply within the context of the Dark Corners of the Earth's internal continuity. Obviously, H.P. Lovecraft didn't intend for Dagon to be named after the character from an unrelated work that didn't even exist until long after his death, but Dark Corners of the Earth isn't meant to be a direct adaptation of Lovecraft's work either, for a number of reasons. So yes, and remember, Mehrunes Dagon might have actually been named after Dagon from H.P. Lovecraft, because there is a lot of H.P. Lovecraft references in a lot of the Elder Scrolls works, which is kind of cool. So again, please don't get upset about that. Relax. I need to paraphrase this next part because I feel like Jonathan Szuhai actually did make a tiny mess up. He talks about how magic is somehow related when it comes to Nirn and both the Dark Corners of the Earth universe. He mentions the fact that the Elder Scrolls uses a lot of magic as much as the Esoteric Order of Dagon and the Deep Ones both use magic. Obviously, I remember the fact that the magic of Nirn actually comes from the stars and the sun itself. This is magic leaking in from the other planes of Aetherius onto the plane of Nirn, which is how mages and other such people use magic so prevalently. It's kind of a little bit of a weird stretch to say that just because they're related that they can use magic. It is possible, but I don't feel like that is the reason. I feel like there is magic in other forms that can be used outside of this kind of stuff, and maybe a little bit of magic might have leaked in from these stars into the world of Dark Corners of the Earth, and that's how maybe some of these beings were able to use it. Because if I'm not mistaken, other beings inside of the Dark Corners of the Earth universe can use magic, and I don't believe they have to be related to the Deep Ones or part of the Esoteric Order of Dagon. So this is the only slip up I see in this part of the theory at the moment. Jonathan then continues, in both the Shadow over Innsmouth and Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth, the Deep Ones are known to inbreed with humans. The resulting hybrids start out as human, but then gradually develop bulging eyes, scabby skin, small ears, narrow heads, and premature baldness. Eventually, they will become full-on Deep Ones themselves. The people of Hackturd have a very similar appearance, especially the Brethren, which are the residents that change the most and stay underground to be nearer to the Deep Ones, implying that some sort of inbreeding might have taken place. I see this as also a little bit of an Easter egg. Obviously, the people at Bethesda, like the Shadow over Innsmouth, the person who made Hackturd, obviously modeled everything after the Shadow over Innsmouth, as even the quest related to it is called the Shadow over Hackturd. So obviously there are going to be a lot of connections with this small bit, but it leaves a lot of possibilities for things to be connected in the future if anybody were to ever try and connect these universes in some way, which is exactly what this series is trying to do, of course. The next part, Jonathan basically goes into why aren't these creatures documented more if they came from Nirn. This is obviously, you know, a lot of things in the Elder Scrolls universe aren't very documented very clearly. A lot of lore isn't very out there and documented, even though it's very important to the world. A lot of creatures such as the Sea Elves aren't very prevalent in Nirn's history, and that is because they most have been forgotten. A lot of books just don't document this kind of stuff, and if they are documenting it, a lot of books have been lost to time, and a lot of other people may have forgotten about these texts and stopped writing about them. So yes, it's very possible that these beings could have been completely ignored. They might not even be known to the rest of Tamriel, mostly because the oceans of Nirn and other such races and other such things from other continents and oceans and other nonsense might actually never have come into contact with the people of Tamriel, which is one of the reasons I'm thinking that if this theory ever possibly did become canon, that's an explanation that they could use, but like I said, very slim chance it could become canon, but if it does. Jonathan then goes on to say some people will probably wonder how the Deep Ones could have ended up in Hackturd if they came from the sea, since Hackturd is an inland mining town, not a coastal fishing village like Innsmouth. But Hackturd does have a well, which could imply that there was water below the town, and this water could flow through underwater streams that could easily connect to the mining tunnels of Hackturd. And there are plenty of places where they could have been linked. Plenty of rivers, plenty of other waterways that could have connected out to the oceans of Tamriel, or even just Nirn in general. There are just plenty of possibilities for how this little tiny mining village could be connected to the oceans by chance. Jonathan then continues to say, you can also hear the Deep Ones growling in the tunnels under Hackturd if you turn off your music. So they could still be there. Even if the Champion of Cyrodiil is exploring these tunnels, the sounds that they make imply that they are massive, and they could be since Father Dagon and Mother Hydra show that more ancient Deep Ones can become almost kaiju-sized. Which, just if you don't understand what kaiju are, they're giant monsters like Godzilla, they could become basically Godzilla-sized, which is pretty big, honestly. And finally, the last part of the email. Finally, the Deep Ones, along with most of the stories and characters of H.P. Lovecraft, are public domain. So even if Bethesda doesn't hold the full rights to Dark Corners of the Earth, or didn't mean to connect Dark Corners of the Earth to the Elder Scrolls, they could still make their Deep Ones the same as Lovecraft's Deep Ones if they wanted to without worrying about any sort of copyright infringement. That's probably the reason why they are explicitly referred to as Deep Ones when Bethesda could have just given them another name. Honestly, that's the end of the email, but I really do kind of like this. I love exploring stuff when it comes to H.P. Lovecraft, and I like the Elder Scrolls. Connecting them is just kind of like a little bit of a guilty treat for me right now. I do like Jonathan's little theory here. Some of it had a little bit of holes in it, but he did work out as much of it as he possibly could, which I do appreciate. I understand, and I completely understand that I might have apologized a lot and been a little bit too cautious in this video, but please understand that a lot of people don't really like this theory. That doesn't mean everybody that watches this video dislikes it, but it does get a lot more dislikes than the average video, and it doesn't get overwhelming amounts, and people don't call me out and call me crappy and all that nonsense for it, but it's still something I have to take with a little bit of caution, because if I just make a video and say, this all could happen everybody, then everybody's gonna get upset. So I like to take it a little bit cautiously just to be safe. If you guys liked it, let me know. If you guys have any issues with it, but please just be respectful about it and just be constructive. Try to add on to it. Don't just be like, this isn't possible, it's stupid. If you don't have anything constructive to say, then honestly, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. You saying anything about it isn't going to change Jonathan's theory unless, of course, you are actually trying to be charismatic and just talk to him about it. Please be respectful down in the comment section. I appreciate all of you for actually watching this video. and actually providing feedback if you leave a like or dislike, or even just commenting what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have any theories you want to see in the future, if you guys have anything you want me to talk about in the future, or if you guys have any mods you want me to review or test out, let me know down in the comments section, or going down in the description and hitting me up through my Twitter, my Discord, or through my email. Thank you all again. I hope you guys have a nice day, night, evening, wherever and whenever you're at. And say it with me now. Play well, eat well, and of course live well, friends. I hope you guys go out there and strive to break infinity. And I hope you guys have a nice day, night, evening. Like I said, wherever and whenever you're at. Take it easy.